Every war begins with a wound. And this war began with a wound to pride, to honor, to the sacred bond between guest and host. Helen, Queen of Sparta, stolen. Menelaus left humiliated, betrayed, dishonored before all of Greece. But the gods had decided the path long before Paris ever set foot in Sparta. And now, that path led straight to war. The Greeks, Achaeans, Argives, Mycenaeans, would not allow a foreign prince to steal one of their queens. And so Menelaus went to the one man who could summon all of Greece. His brother, Agamemnon, High King of Mycenae. The world was about to gather its greatest warriors. The age of heroes stood on the edge of a blade. Agamemnon stood at the head of his great hall, armor hanging across pillars, wolf pelts draped over marble. Menelaus entered, face carved with fury. Agamemnon asked,
"Speak, brother. Why do you come to me with fire in your eyes?"
Menelaus replied,
Paris of Troy has taken Helen, my wife, my honor.
Agamemnon's expression hardened, less from sympathy, more from opportunity. For this war meant power, glory, dominance over all Greece. Menelaus said,
You swore to defend my marriage. Now hold to your oath.
Agamemnon descended from his throne and said,
"And I shall? But we cannot go alone. The oath of Tyndareus binds every king. Every suitor who sought Helen's hand must now march to war."
He smiled and said again,
"We will gather them, all of them."
The age of heroes was about to awaken. Years earlier, when Helen was to marry, dozens of kings sought her hand. Her beauty could ignite jealousy, war, chaos. So the wise Odysseus proposed an oath. All suitors must vow to defend Helen's chosen husband against any future threat. And now, that threat had come. Greece would march. Not for Menelaus. Not for Helen. But because an oath bound them. Agamemnon unfurled a massive map of the Aegean and said, "We send word to them all. To Ithaca, to Argos, to Salamis, to Crete. Let every hero answer the call." And so the messengers rode out. To kings. To warriors. To legends. In Ithaca, Odysseus stood beside his newborn son, Telemachus. War was the last thing he wanted. He had a peaceful kingdom. A loving wife, Penelope. A child barely 1 month old. But Odysseus knew something others did not. If he went to Troy, he would not return for many years. He tried to avoid the summons. When Agamemnon's messenger, Palamedes, arrived, Odysseus pretended to be mad. He drove an ox and a donkey yoked together. One tall, one short, an uneven pair. He plowed the beach instead of his fields. He sowed salt instead of grain. Palamedes watched him silently. Then, he took baby Telemachus, and laid him in front of the plow. Odysseus froze. His eyes shifted from the child to Palamedes. He turned the plow aside, saving his son. Palamedes said, "You are not mad, Odysseus. And you will join us in war?" Odysseus exhaled sharply, defeated. Odysseus said, "So the sea calls me again. Even if it tears me from everything I love." And thus the cleverest of Greeks joined the coming war. Next, the messengers wrote Papylus. Nestor, oldest and wisest of the Greek kings, received them with calm dignity and replied, "I am too old to fight. But not too old to lead." His age was no weakness. He had fought centaurs, giants, monsters. His advice carried the weight of decades. Tell Agamemnon the ships of Pylos will join him. Greece must stand united. And thus wisdom joined the coming war. Diomedes, the young lion of Argos. In Argos, a young warrior trained relentlessly. His blade moved like lightning, clean, precise, deadly. This was Diomedes, the youngest of Greece's champions. And one of the most fearsome. When Agamemnon's envoy arrived, he did not hesitate and agree to join. If Menelaus calls for aid, Argos will answer. He placed his sword on his shoulder. And I will bring 20 ships. In time, Diomedes would become second only to Achilles himself. But for now, he was simply a young lion eager for glory. Ajax the Great of Salamis. A colossal man stood atop the cliffs of Salamis, broad-shouldered, towering, immovable. This was Ajax the Great, son of Telamon. His strength rivaled Heracles. His shield was the size of a barn door. He did not fear gods or men. When the messenger arrived, Ajax simply nodded. I will stand with Menelaus. He strapped on his armor, heavy bronze that only he could lift. Tell Agamemnon, I bring 12 ships. And my spear. And thus, strength joined the coming war. But the most important hero was missing. Achilles, son of Thetis, blessed with near immortality, destined to become the greatest warrior who ever lived. But his mother, Thetis, knew a terrible prophecy. If Achilles went to Troy, he would win eternal glory, but die young. So she hid him among the daughters of King Diomedes on the island of Skyros, disguised as a girl, wearing silk instead of bronze. Agamemnon needed him. Greece needed him. The prophecies demanded it. So Odysseus devised a plan. He came to the women's hall disguised as a merchant, with jewelry, dresses, perfumes, and a single sword and shield. When raiders' horns suddenly filled the air, an alarm Odysseus staged. One girl leapt forward, grabbing the sword instinctively. Her stance flawless. Her eyes blazing. Her movement unmistakable. Odysseus, smiling, Achilles, son of Peleus, your disguise is admirable. But Greece needs its greatest warrior. Achilles stared at him, caught between destiny and life. Achilles replied, my mother says I will die young if I go. Odysseus said, perhaps. But you will also live forever. Achilles closed his eyes. Then lit. Achilles said, prepare my armor. I will join the war. And thus, the greatest of all heroes stepped onto the path of fate. Agamemnon stood atop a rocky cliff overlooking the harbor of Aulis. Below him, the sea was filled with ships, hundreds upon hundreds. Long ships with dragon heads. Black ships with oars like wings. Crested prows painted in red and gold. 1,000 sails blotting the horizon. The greatest army the world had ever seen. Agamemnon smiled and said, Greece has answered. One by one, the heroes arrived. Nestor, wise and noble. Odysseus, cunning and sharp-eyed. Ajax, towering like a living fortress. Diomedes, fierce and burning with ambition. Menelaus, determined to reclaim his honor. And finally, Achilles, whose mere presence commanded awe. The air trembled with destiny. Nestor said, this is an army worthy of legend. Odysseus replied, let Troy tremble. Heroes have gathered. Achilles joined, it is only the beginning. But the gods were watching. And the gods were not yet ready to let them sail. For days, the ships remained trapped. The sea lay flat as glass. No breeze. No tide. No movement. The army grew restless. Agamemnon summoned Calchas, the prophet. The goddess Artemis is angered. Agamemnon, you have offended her. Agamemnon said, how? Calchas replied, you boasted you were the finest hunter. Better than Artemis herself. A hush fell. Calchas again said, to appease her, you must sacrifice your daughter. Agamemnon froze. Menelaus looked away. Odysseus clenched his jaw. Achilles stared at the prophet in disbelief. The army held its breath. Calchas again said, only then will the winds return. The gathering of heroes had come together, but their journey had not yet begun. And before they could sail, a father would face the most terrible decision of his life. Thus the stage was set for episode 8. The sacrifice of Iphigenia. The world had never seen warriors such as these. Men whose deeds would echo for thousands of years. Men who would face gods, monsters, prophecy, and death. Men who would carve their names into myth. But before they could cross the sea, a sacrifice must be made. And so ends episode 7, The Gathering of Heroes. The storm has assembled, and its first lightning strike is yet to fall.